Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today we're going to do part two of my of my review of Wonder Woman. Spoiler review. This is huge spoilers of Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 3. This is one of my favorite comic series that DC has done recently. I've been a huge fan of the Superman Earth 1 books, a huge fan of Batman Earth 1 books, and Wonder Woman Earth 1 books. And I might do a series just looking at the Earth 1 books. I wish they would have done a Flash Earth 1. That would have been totally my jam. But yeah, this is so we got to a point where we were talking about in the book Wonder Woman Earth 1 that there are two timelines that this book covers. Now, it covers one timeline in the future where Wonder Woman has taken over the world, and she's the Amazon. She's now the queen of the Amazons, basically, because Hippolyta died in Volume 2. She was actually killed by Von Gunther. What's her name? It's one of Wonder Woman's classic Golden Age villains, the Baroness von Gunther. And she's killed by her. But in this book, now where Wonder Woman, Diana is actually queen of the Amazon. She's gone back to Themyscira after her mother died. And she went back to defeat the Baroness von Gunther. She's taken over from the Amazons, and in the future timeline, she's taken over the world and created this pacifist utopia by controlling the worst impulses of men. So there's a kind of weird Brave New World stroke 1984 feel to this comic, and I think there is some definite references, especially to a Brave New World in this comic a lot. And I think, again, what I love about it is its clever playfulness with literary themes, such as can there truly be a utopia without taking something away from humanity that if you have a utopian society, a truly utopian society, is there a cost to humanity? Does something have to be taken away that is so important that even utopia, even peace, isn't worth it? And that's what this comic book really deals with as a theme. So in order for Wonder Woman's pacifist philosophy to work, she has to control the impulses, even down to the kind of genetic level, of men's violent impulses. So there are some men, though, in the future under the Manly Party who actually are trying to fight against what they see as the oppression of men in this utopia. And yeah, so they are real caricatures of, maybe Trump-like supporters, or, obviously, given the context, that's an obvious target, but also some of the more kind of anti-feminist currents in men at the moment. Now, obviously, there is, parts of feminism which have been great, that have led to the Me Too movement and ousting, powerful men who do terrible things, and just thinking a little bit more about, what equality means in terms of, gender equality, in terms of, pay grade, in terms of equal pay and all of this kind of stuff. But also there's been a more kind of insidious form of feminism that has also reared its head in more recent times, that has led to things like cancel culture and all of that kind of stuff. But forget about that. In broad terms, what this book is discussing is those men who are, who have a thing against, this kind of feminism. And Garrett Manley, who is the leader of the Manley Party, is the one who is leading the fray in terms of going against Wonder Woman. So that's one timeline, and it's a really, really interesting kind of play. And I love also the references to not only William Moulton Marston, who had created Wonder Woman's kind of pacifistic philosophy, that he believed that if women ruled the world would be a kinder place. And he believed in this weird kind of philosophy of submission to loving authority, right? So he believed that women, if you could submit to women's loving authority, then the world would be a much more peaceful place. So Grant Morrison is really tackling this as an idea, but he also does a lot of references, which is great, to a lot of different Wonder Woman runs, going from Gail Simone to Greg Rucka to to all the great kind of Wonder Woman runs. There's one I'm forgetting, who wrote Gods and Monsters, who's actually excellent as well. But all the great Wonder Woman runs are touched on in this comic. So that's the one storyline that is going, and you see all these kind of I suppose they're the kind of incel men, the beta males who are enamored by Garrett Manley and want things to be the way it was when men ruled the world. And you can see here the kind of picture behind this guy in the pink pants here, where clearly he's kind of enamored by what we would call as toxic masculinity, this kind of masculinity that suggests that men have to be a particular way, strong and domineering. And hey, wait, this book is already out. Hi, Fenya. Yeah, the book is out. Fenya, no, there can't be a utopia without something being taken or enforced, because we humans are a species that wants peace, but it is unable to do it because it is against our nature. Yep. I'm sorry, but Gail Simone's run wasn't that great for me. Tell me which part you actually read, which book you actually read of Gail Simone. I'm kind of curious because basically I only like the beginning and end of Gail Simone's run. So I like The Circle, and I like War Killer. So that was basically the beginning of Gail Simone's run and the end of Gail Simone's run. Everything in the middle, I'm not a big fan of, but I really, really like Greg Rucka's run. And Greg Rucka is my favorite, but the two, if you take Wonder Woman, The Circle, right, I'll show you here. So this is Wonder Woman, The Circle. You can read it literally as a graphic novel, right? And then Wonder Woman, War Killer, which also can be read as a graphic novel. And they play as like the beginning and end. And it has one of Wonder Woman's most underrated villains, which is Alcyon, in that particular run. And she should have been the villain for Wonder Woman 2. In Wonder Woman 1984, or whatever the second Wonder Woman movie should have been, Alcyon would have been by far the best villain to actually use for a Wonder Woman movie. She's much more compelling than Cheetah, and she kind of fits in with all of the Amazonian and Themysciran kind of mythology in a much more interesting way. you know, she's got a goal, an identifiable goal that she wants, unlike Cheetah. She's got a great like origin, what she's actually determined to do, which is like no other villain before her in DC Comics. So she's a very, very unique and original villain. And so, yeah, I'm kind of curious. Are you talking about that? Well, I read the first 3 issues, but I wasn't really into it, so I stopped. Right. So can you tell me that if it was the first issues of her complete run, because the first issue will be contained in this book, The Circle, and then this book, Wonder Woman War Killer. So let me know, and because I think if you read that, there's a chance you might like it. You may just not be into it, but there's a chance you might like it. But I particularly like Alcyon because people say that Wonder Woman doesn't have great villains, and Alcyon is actually a fantastic villain for Wonder Woman. And I wish she'd be brought back. She should be one of Wonder Woman's arch nemesis, because she's got such a good motivation. I don't want to spoil that book, but she has such a good motivation for why she's doing what she's doing. And then also, yeah, definitely you should try War Killer as well. If you like The Circle. So going back to Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 3. So yeah, the clever thing about using these boys, and they have a really good symbol, which you can see is like 3 circles, basically, around each other, with a dot in the top circle, which clearly is like supposed to be the penis, like looked up from a certain angle. So anyway, that's the future timeline, and then there's the present timeline, which is really interesting as well, where basically Maxwell Lord has started this war with the Amazons, and he's launching these robots, which are called A.R.E.S, right? So Ares. And I thought that was how Grant Morrison was going to represent Ares in this story, which I thought, okay, that's a cool way to do it. That's a cool little updates where Ares is just a war machine, a literal war machine created by Maxwell Lord. But it turns out he's up to something different, which we'll go into later. But actually, what he's, so here's some good action where the Amazons kind of take on the Ares war machine, these kind of weapons of mass destruction. And you can see Maxwell Lord there commanding these men to destroy the Amazon islands, so basically Themyscira. And the reason for this war, it comes out of the second comic, where Wonder Woman is teaching the Amazonian ways to people in man's world, teaching this kind of pacifism and peaceful kind of philosophy, and teaching them about her worship of the Hellion. Yeah, Hellion gods, right? Gods and goddesses. So she shows how the Amazons worship the Hellenistic, gods and goddesses, right? So that's the kind of backdrop of why certain kind of right-wing and Christian groups turned against Wonder Woman in man's world. And now they see her as such a threat, so dangerous, because the Amazons have this amazing technology based around the purple ray, which is, I'm so glad he's brought that back. Like the purple ray was one of, because if you watch the films, you'd think that the Amazons are like this backwards culture. But actually in the comics, historically, especially in Moulton Marston's time, the Amazons weren't like some primitive culture. They were badass warriors, yeah, and believed in the kind of Greek myths, but they built a whole kind of technological culture as well. But they just hadn't built weapons of war. They hadn't built like guns and bullets and bombs and stuff like that. They built more things to heal people. Medicines and technology for healing and technology for they had a place called Reformation Island, right? Where in the original comics, right? Where if there was a kind of Amazon or one of Wonder Woman's villains, that was kind of their that was kind of Wonder Woman's Arkham Asylum. So Reformation Island was basically, she'd send her villains and, they'd teach them the Amazon ways and they'd be reformed so she wouldn't kill them, right? So that was all cool. But that was what their technology was basically based on most of the time in these comics. It wasn't based on, it wasn't based on, the kind of violent technology of man's world. Grant Morrison does this in a really, really cool way, where he shows that the US are seeing the Amazons as a threat because of their technology, but actually all of their technology is built towards kind of more of a pacifistic society. So, even in the old days, like of Wonder Woman, where, in William Moulton Marston's original run from the 30s, the Amazons would still use swords and bow and arrows and that kind of stuff in fights, but they would use really good technology in terms of medical technology and stuff like that, and building technology and all of this kind of stuff, and they had like magic as well, so it was that element. But yeah, so the Ares guys are taking taking over, and there's some really deep cuts in this comic, and the artwork is, as I said, is glorious, but there's really deep cuts in this comic because here you have like a kangaroo, right, which is what they ride in Amazonia or Themyscira. But you haven't seen these kangaroos since like William Moulton Marston's 38 run. Like they don't have the Amazons riding kangaroos in the more modern comics. But I love the fact that they actually do this. He's really, and I'm telling you, this is what I really love about it. He's really focused on all the elements of Wonder Woman's story and really updated it in original and new ways. He's brought back the Bana Migdal, which were the more militaristic Amazons. They were a separate island of militaristic Amazons that stayed in man's world, basically. But they were near Themyscira, but they were stayed in man's world, so they could more easily be found than the Amazons were on Themyscira. So the Bana Migdal, this militaristic tribe, was sometimes ruled by Hippolyta's sister, and other times it was ruled by Artemis of the Bana Migdal, who was the redhead Amazon who in the 80s challenged Wonder Woman to she basically the Themyscira decided Wonder Woman was no longer worthy of being the ambassador to Themyscira. So they said, we need somebody who's stronger, who's more hard-minded, and who's more worthy of being Wonder Woman, the ambassador, as I said, to the outside world. And they chose, they had a competition to see who could beat Wonder Woman, and it was Artemis who beats Wonder Woman. And here you see that Grant Morrison has done a really, really clever update of Artemis, and that's what I like, with Wonder Woman stories. And I think it's what they need to focus on in any medium, whether it's film, animation, anything, because and maybe I'm a bit biased towards the story because of how much of Wonder Woman's history, mythology that it's used. But the really good thing, as I said, is that Wonder Woman really needs her mythology streamlined. There's good parts of her mythology in different pockets in different runs of the character. So, Artemis will show up in one run, but she won't show up in the other. And it would be kind of like if Superman, if they had just dropped Lois Lane for 20 years. You've got this really great character, or they dropped Perry White for 20 years. You have this really great character, and instead of, constantly bringing her back and reimagining her in different ways, she often just disappears from Wonder Woman comics. And I think it's terrible. And too much of that happens in the Wonder Woman comics too often. And I want them to do more of what Grant Morrison and some more recent writers have been doing, and bringing back these old characters that really worked in her stories, to flesh out her supporting cast, to flesh out her villains, and etc. So that's a good thing about this comic, that it really pays attention to the history and mythology of Wonder Woman. Let's get back to the story. Oh, so another interesting change in the Earth One comics is it has a black Steve Trevor, which has some interesting part of this story. I won't spoil that, but I like the fact that this story goes back to the roots of Wonder Woman, because a lot of Earth One was based more on the idea that the Amazons were more scientific than mythological, but this one goes back to the roots of that Grecian and Hellenistic mythology, and you see these scenes of Wonder Woman, because that's another thing that is often dropped from Wonder Woman's mythology, is that on Themyscira is the gateway to the underworld, right? So one of the reasons that the gods put the Amazons on this island is to protect the world from the evils of the underworld. So basically in the island you can go down to Tartarus, where all the evil gods are kept, and stuff like that. That's in Wonder Woman's mythology. So here again, you see her, you see that they go from this more scientific understanding of the Amazons and then go back into that, taking her back to the Greek mythology. So I think what Grant Morrison really did in this, which is great, is that he's able to make take all the elements of Wonder Woman's mythology and really put them together in somewhat of a cohesive manner. And I love when people are able to do that. Sometimes people focus more on the Greek mythology side and less on the Amazons as this intelligent, advanced society. And sometimes they focus more on them being advanced and less on the mythological thing side of them. And I like to see both being shown here, because that's what she is. That's what the character and her mythology is about. So here she's going into the underworld, and you see different versions of Cerberus, the dog, the hound at the doorway, who basically is at the doorway to the underworld, and he basically protects it or guards it. And you see different versions of him. So now he's just this small, cute puppy dog. And I love the fact that Wonder Woman always has a dove by her side as well, helping her and guiding her, because she is the, ambassador of peace. That's what she's supposed to symbolize as a character. So there's just some really great deep cuts into the mythology. And I wanted to talk about it because I loved that they did this. And I love that they took it, the chances. Does it completely work? No. There are elements of this story that's very messy. It's almost like this book should have been bigger. This should have been I'm sure that Grant Morrison cut out a lot, and there's a much bigger version of this volume of the comic that is a more cohesive story. This is very, very much like a fever dream, jumping from scene to scene. Sometimes you don't know how things connect exactly, but again, the good much outweighs the bad. You've got versions of the Baroness von Gunther. You've got versions of I love the second volume, as I said, with Dr. Psycho, but you see Dr. Psycho in this comic as well, where he's gone to Reformation Island, and you have a much scarier version of this Reformation Island than we've seen before, because this version of Reformation Island, is when you see this version of it, you wonder how scary this is, because basically what they're doing is kind of wrong. I mean, it's one of those situations like A Clockwork Orange, where you're like, okay, sure, I get it, he's a criminal and he deserves to be punished, but to do this where you're practically taking away the free will of an individual, is that kind of worth, you're taking away the free will, and yes, he's become a good person now, but he's become a good person in virtue of completely reshaping his personality. So it looks at that Reformation Island through a much darker lens. So here you see Dr. Psycho being turned into a submissive, to Wonder Woman. And it's played off by Wonder Woman as if this is this great thing, because at least, she's not sending him to the electric chair. She's not taking away his life, but in a way she is. He is no more as a personality. He's been robbed of his own individuality, which in a way is death. It's just a slower, more painful, a slower, more psychological death than, like, say, the electric chair. So there's that. There's the action could be better in this. I think I would like to see Wonder Woman doing a little bit more cool action in this as well. I think that's kind of missing, but I love her plan to beat man's world through these kind of pacifistic means. She isn't going to beat them through the same means as they would, which is to just completely come and bomb Themyscira and destroy it and all of this kind of thing. And the other thing I really like is, I wouldn't have liked this if they had have introduced this in the second comic, where they did a really great new take on Maxwell Lord. But since it's the third comic, it's kind of interesting, because what you find out halfway through is that Maxwell Lord is really Ares. So he's the one who's arranging and organizing this war against Themyscira, where they're bombing them, like kind of like reminiscent of almost like the Iraq War or a modern war with drones and all of this kind of stuff. So like a lot of drone warfare. Wonder Woman isn't playing that game. She's a piece. She's not going to kill innocents and destroy cities in order to win. But she will win by being a warrior at the same time. And it's interesting the way he plays around with that concept. Now, as I said, the action could be a lot better. Still, there's not enough great action. But I think philosophically speaking, this is a really great book, and I really enjoy a lot of how they've updated and reused a lot of Wonder Woman's mythology from past. There's even more than I've mentioned. So if you're somebody who's one of those rare people who's read, a lot of Wonder Woman comics, you'll see all of the great references that this book has, because I've read most of the great Wonder Woman runs, whether it's Perez, Gail Simone, Greg Rucka. I've read a bit of all of those great runs by Wonder Woman. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the story. Um, and so just yeah, so I'm just going to answer some of what Fenya the Ice Wolf had to say, and Vishal. So so Vishal said, is it bad that I've never read a Wonder Woman comic? Yes, it is. It's a terrible thing that you've never read a Wonder Woman comic. But there are good ones. I think basically DC doesn't really do a good job of advertising the great Wonder Woman runs. But I'm telling you, man, I'll tell you a good one to get into it is great one to get into a Wonder Woman comics is Superman Wonder Woman Sacrifice. This is a fantastic little book to get into Wonder Woman. It has a lot of action. Has Superman, so if you're a Superman fan as well, you'll quite like it. And it's got one of the best. It's got the best smackdown between Wonder Woman and Superman, and how it might, realistically play out. And yeah, so in terms of great artwork, I would recommend. Also, I would recommend, Wonder Woman, Dead Earth as well. This is another great, really modern one. Wonder Woman Dead Earth is fantastic as well. So those that, just in case you haven't read a Wonder Woman comic before. I only read Batman, Superman, Lantern stuff, Flash comics. Yeah, it's fine. I think a lot of people, because of Wonder Woman hasn't been marketed really well by DC, a lot of people are like that. So it's annoying. And Justice League, yeah. I was like that when I was a kid. I would only read Batman and X-Men comics when I was like a kid, right? Like maybe some Spawn and some other comics like that. But I really wasn't into Superman until like my early 20s, like 22, 21, 22, where I was like, oh shit, Superman's actually got some really, really good comics and stuff. So yeah, I think that DC could do a better job of advertising really, really great stories by Wonder Woman. There's another great story called Wonder Woman, the Hikatea, which is like one of the great graphic novels of DC. Period. Where basically this is the big image of it, is Wonder Woman just stamping on Batman's head, and it's a Wonder Woman versus Batman comic basically, and it pits their two philosophies against each other. So it really crystallizes what Wonder Woman represents versus what Batman represents. It's really cool. Vishal, I also only used to check those comics out, but trust me, Wonder Woman is a great character. If she has a right writer, yeah, exactly. I agree. I also only used to check those comics. Yeah, exactly. You've got that's point I was making. Remember the Purple Ray, and that is the name. Yeah, Purple Healing Ray is cool. They had badass tech, but never left the old magic ways behind. Exactly. And I like that version of the Amazons. I like the other version of the Amazons as well, where they're not like so technological. But I'd like to see, they've had that version now in the movies. I'd like to see if they do a reboot of Wonder Woman, the Amazons, where they're actually advanced. Especially because, how are you going to do the Amazons versus the Atlanteans now, with the Amazons having such backward tech? So if you want to do movies where the Amazons, can take on, you know, someone like the Atlanteans. You really want to improve their technology. A fucking kangaroo, what the hell? This was a thing? Yeah, in the original comics, they used to ride kangaroos. It's madness. Yeah, I like Wonder Woman. Gal's version made me like the character. She's exactly. And Gal's version is very, very much like the comics. It's got some changes in terms of the origin story, which I don't particularly like. But, you know, and the gods dying and stuff like that, I didn't think was a good idea. But in general, I think it really captured the spirit of the character, that first Wonder Woman one. The second one does capture the spirit of Wonder Woman in a way, but it's also bullshit. You know, it's just a terrible story. So it's not like the second one, Wonder Woman 84, violates massively what Wonder Woman is, but in a way it dumbs it down, and yeah, like the story is just weak. It's like it's like one of Wonder Woman's comics from like the 60s or 70s when it was just really, really fucking goofy, as opposed to some of her better runs in the 80s, some of the runs in late 90s and early 2000s where the character really was excellent. I do prefer the more alien side of Wonder Woman. Interesting. I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm sorry, but reimagining characters is trash for me. They rarely work. I don't understand what you mean by that. You'd have to tell me what you mean. Sorry, reimagining characters is trash for me. You know what, Fenya, if you want to, if I can start a new stream and we can talk about this if you want, and I can invite you to the new stream because I'm actually really curious about what you mean by this. Yeah, Hikatia was a great novel, one of my favorites. Yep, it's a fucking fantastic one. It is. Amazons are advanced, but I don't think they're Atlantean advanced. Yeah, I don't think they are Atlantean advanced, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to do like a Flashpoint comic and stuff like, sorry, Flashpoint film or something like that, the Amazons can't be that far behind technologically than the Atlanteans. Cool. Yeah, yeah. All right. I'll start a new stream and then we can do one together. And then killing the old gods was a bad because they kept the new ones at bay, aka Darkseid. Yeah, exactly. And okay, yeah, okay. Let's do a stream together. All right. So I'm gonna finish there, and I'm gonna send a link for a new stream, and then we're going to have a discussion. I like the idea of discussing reimaginings of characters, so we're going to discuss that. Great, thanks so much. Really, please do like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side. I love you 3000. Bye.